Mike at CBI Offroad. Today we're going to be doing an install on our ZR2 Colorado, rear bumper with dual swing arm. Let's get started. Alright, so first thing we're going to start off with is removing the rear bumper. Obviously we already have ours removed. You are going to keep your factory hardware, these 4 larger bolts here on each side. Before you remove it, obviously you're going to want to disconnect any of the harnesses and different things depending on your model, and kind of keep those out of the way, and then we'll jump into getting the bumper on and we'll go from there. So before we install this bumper, you are probably going to want a friend to help you to get it up there. It is pretty hard to, you're not going to be able to hold it yourself and put all your bolts in at the same time. So as you'll see here, me and Kenny will put this thing on, and you can let it sit, and then you can go through, get the rest of your bolts, side bolts in and things, tighten it up, and we're going to go ahead and adjust it, see where we want it, and then we move on from there. So once you got the bumper up in place, we're going to go ahead and we're just going to tighten everything down just to where we can still adjust the bumper, so we can get it into, you know, the right spot where we want, make sure everything's even side to side, and then we can tighten everything down after that. Alright, and then once you got it all kind of adjusted where you want it, you can go ahead and tighten a couple of them down, make sure it's all good, and then finish everything else from there. And then we'll wire this into the factory harness once we get to that point. So we're just going to go ahead and install our bump stops now. This is a dual swing arm, so it's going to have 2 of them. It's just going to slide right down in there, and then you just got to reach your hand up and around to get the nut on the back side. And it is a serrated flange nut, so once you got it started, you can tighten this down and it'll grab on the other side. You won't have to worry about holding it. Alright, it's just a 3/16 Allen head to tighten that, and we'll go ahead and tighten those down. There we go. Alright, so we're going to install our flip up license plate bracket real quick. Just a couple small button heads. We're going to come right through here. Put the nut on to the back. All right, and these small button heads are just a 5/32 Allen, and they are a serrated flange nut on the other side, so they're gonna grab in when we go ahead and tighten these. All right, those are tight. All right, and then we'll go ahead and install the license plate. We have these holes here. We can kind of flip that up, and we have some holes in the top of the bumper that are meant so you can install these a little bit easier. Those are going to be the same size as the other ones. I'm going to tighten those down. There we're good, and then this can just flip up. We can get to our hitch still and everything, and then when we're not in use, we just fold right back down. All right, so we got our factory license plate light. I already cut the connector off the end of it, and we're just gonna wire these straight in to our LED license plate light that we're going on. So we'll go ahead and take our heat shrink butt connectors and we'll put them on here. And so these LED lights, they're a little bit different. We're gonna go black to power, which is our green wire there, and then we're gonna go white to black, which is our ground. Crimp those on there, and then we'll heat shrink them, put this back up. We'll kind of zip tie this up out of the way, keep it out, up away from getting caught on things, and the license plate light will work. All right, so before we get ready to install our swing arms, sometimes the spindle will have, some maybe a little excess powder coat, different things. So you can just I just got some coarse emery cloth here, and I'm just gonna sand it kind of down and get it all cleaned up so that our swing arm slides on there really nicely. We're getting ready to install our sealed bearings into our swing arm. I'm just going to go ahead and clean these out, make sure we got a nice clean surface in there for putting the bearings in. I just use a small drill with a little wire brush attachment. I'm just going to make sure all the dirt and debris and you can get some of that, dirt and sand in there from sandblasting and powder coating the control arm or the swing arms. And once that's all cleaned out of there, we're going to use a little bit of anti-seize. We're going to coat the inside of that, and then we're going to put the bearings in. All right, got some anti-seize. We're just going to give it a nice coat inside of there. Help when the bearings go in, they just slide right in a lot easier. All right, and so we're gonna do kind of the same thing to the spindles. I'm just gonna put anti-seize all over this, and just to make it easier to install those bearings, they can slide right on there. It just makes things a lot smoother. All right, so now we got everything ready. We can go ahead and slide our swing arms down onto the spindles. Again, I'm just going to be using a rubber mallet. You may need a friend to help hold this in place, or get it even and stuff, but they are pretty simple to do. This is down. You may need something else to kind of get over the top of this. It kind of varies on what you can use, but I just use it's actually an old rubber bump stop from a Jeep. Fits perfectly. All right, so once we got the swing arms on, we're gonna take our little seals and they're just gonna slide right on over the top of this. And then they're just gonna push right down into our swing arm. That's just gonna help keep all the moisture and everything out of those sealed bearings. Okay, so these are our spindle caps. They are specific side to side. You may have to just test fit them to see where the swing arm opens and lines up with our pull pin. We can go ahead and toss the pull pins in there for now and have those ready, and then we can go ahead and bolt these into place. All right, so we got our button heads here. They're gonna come right in these two bolt holes here. They have a welded in captured nut. And these are a 7/32 Allen. You can go ahead and set these in here. All right, so once you got the spindle cap bolted in, there is a little Allen stop nut right there that we're gonna go ahead and tighten up. And that's just gonna help keep this thing in place as well. And that is a 4mm Allen in there. So our Destaco latch, we're going to go ahead and put together. They have these small, just the walk nuts. So we're going to put those ones on first, thread those down a little ways each side. And then you can see on our pivot point that we have two flat spots. We're going to go ahead and put those on the walking nut side. And then the other side are going to be a nylock. We're just gonna put those on there. We're just gonna leave that loose for now until we install. To bolt this thing on, we got 4 3/16 size Allen head button heads. I'm gonna put just a little bit of anti-seize on each one of these just to keep them from seizing up in there, and then we'll go ahead and put them on. Okay, once we got our Destaco latch bolted in place, we're going to go ahead and tighten this down, these 13mm nylocks, until they basically cinch this up real nice and tight. We want to make sure that it's nice and even. We put an even pressure across it so that one side's not tighter than the other. We just want it to be just nice and firm to push that down and lock that in place. And then we go ahead and tighten up these lock nuts on the back side. All right, so we got a vertical tire carrier here. We're gonna be installing on these swing arms. You're gonna have 3 of these larger 12 by 1.5 bolts with these little kind of lock washer things. And those are just gonna come right up through. You're just gonna push those down. And they're just gonna help keep that nut there, or that bolt there in place. Once those are installed, we can kind of set that off to the side. There are going to be 3 lug nuts with that. And the base, we can go ahead and install on the swing arm now. You're going to have 4 these bolts that are going to hold it on, and nuts, and then we'll get to the rest of it here in just a second. So our swing arm is adjustable for the height of the tire depending on what you're carrying. Maybe the size of the tire, if you're, stock size or 37, something like that. You can adjust this, to up and down, keep it in and out of your way and things. This one, we're just gonna put it the second one from the top. All right, so once you got the base on there, you can go ahead and tighten down the 4 5/8 bolts. Get that set in place. All right, now we got the top plate, and these are slotted for adjustability, for depending on the offset of your wheel and stuff, and then the size of your tire. we're going to slide that right on top. We're just going to drop 2 of those through. And you don't want to tighten this all the way down until you either get the measurement of what the back spacing is on your wheel, or you can just kind of leave them loose, put your wheel up there, cinch it down, and this thing will pull kind of out to wherever you need it, and then you can go ahead and tighten these up afterwards. Alright, so we're going to be using Rotopacks on this swing arm. Our swing arms do come with pre-set holes, depending on how you want to set it up. This one we're just going to go ahead and put right here in the middle, and we're just going to put the nuts in, or the bolts in through the back side over here. Line that up. Alright, once you got this mounted up there, you can go ahead and slide your Rotopacks on. Go ahead and spin them down, lock them into place. Depending on which style you have, this one's going to be a locking style. You can slide that back in there and lock it in place. Set up this rear tire. Alright, so now we got a tire carrier and everything on there. We're getting ready to put our wheel up there. One thing we do want to go over is that these are slotted and meant to be used for a couple different vehicles. So these 3 that I have it in are going to be for our Colorado bolt pattern, but then they also extend out and they're going to fit our Tacoma bolt pattern. The 2 top ones, while using the bottom one, is going to fit like our 5-lug stuff, which is going to be some of the Land Cruisers, Tundras, things like that. With the wheel on there and everything, we can now kind of adjust whether or not you want it touching, and kind of pull it in and out. Open the swing arm open, and then you can see here that we can kind of push this thing up and out as long as our bolts are all still loose. And once those are loose, you can see this thing will kind of adjust in and out depending on what you want the gap there at. We typically leave them just butted up against there, and then we go ahead and tighten everything down. These are going to be a 5/8 bolt. Alright, so on our swing arms we do have accessory for the table setup, which is just going to be these bolt holes here, and then we also have the small one all over here. It is easier if you're going to do tables to set up the tables prior to installing them on the bumper. Laying flat just makes it a lot easier, cutting the cables and getting everything to length and everything. So, all right. So on our dual swing arms, they all have the built-in high lift. setup. So which is going to be these holes here. They're kind of adjustable. You're going to put your carriage bolts through, and then just take the nut. We're going to tighten that down just to keep those in place. All right, and so with the nut in place, we're not putting a high lift on right now, but you are going to slide the high lift on. These kind of adjust a little bit to line up where your holes are. You are going to want to watch the placement of the bottom foot for the swing arm when it opens. Once you got it on there, you can take your wing nuts and those can just go right on top, and that's just basically what's going to lock that thing in place. So one of the cool options about our bumper is that we are providing a bracket that is optional to purchase for relocating your camera from up here in the handle down here to the bottom of the bumper. It's going to mount in right there. Super simple install. All you got to do is pull your camera and your harness out from the back of the bumper, which is actually super easy. I mean, it's literally, you take this panel off, you unscrew a couple of things, and you can pull the harness and the camera and everything right back out. And then we got 2 holes here that are going to bolt our camera up in place, and then we have a nice hole here that the harness is going to come through. All right, so once you got your harness pulled back out, comes right out of the bottom of the tailgate, you do want to unscrew it from the back of the camera, and then we're going to just slide it right through this hole here. It's going to come right out through here, and then we'll bolt that bracket in place. So once the harness is ran through and you got your camera installed on the bracket, you're going to go ahead and take your harness, and you're going to want to do this prior to bolting this to the bumper. We're just going to push that back in place, and then we're going to put our factory screws back in, and we'll just bolt this camera back together. So once we got the camera bolted back together and the harness put in place, we do have these plates. These are going to be powder coated normally. Otherwise you can get them optional bare, so you can paint them, match them to your vehicle however you'd like, but they will just come powder coated standard from us. So we'll put our bolt through, brackets up in. Now we're going to pull this harness back through, and it kind of just hangs there. So what we've done is we've added this little sticky tape spot that allows us to use a zip tie through it. So we're just going to use that, and we're going to zip tie this harness just up out of the way. There we go, that harness is all up out of the way. Completely still functional to get to your hitch with the hitch in. And even with the hitch in, these have a wide enough angle view that you can still see behind you very well. All right, that is the install for our Colorado ZR2 dual swing arm rear bumper. If you have any questions or concerns about your product or ordering, you can contact us here at CBI Offroad or email us. Thanks.